Okay, second time's the charm, hopefully. Technical difficulties. Outlaw Radio is back on the air. Tell a friend to tell a friend. We stumbled, as they say in the Bay Area, we fumbled, I guess. But it's all good. It's your man, 50 Grand, Kevin Barnes, the militant with a microphone, the mouthpiece of the movement, aka the Negro Whisperer. And I'm in the building for Outlaw Radio for the culture. And this time we're gonna do it right. Since then, everything has cleared up. So I do have my brother, the ghetto witch doctor, in the house with me. What's going on with you, Kamar? How you doing tonight?
Life is what's going on, man. How y'all doing out there? Welcome to Outlaw Radio. When we
Thank you.
talk that talk and we definitely walk that walk, raising vibrations and elevating thought. Y'all better come on in. I'm trying to tell you, I am the black woman lover, the black man's brother, the culture teacher, hood healer, the ghetto witch doctor. I'm y'all holistic health wellness coach, Kamar Carter. Peace, peace, family. Hey, look, I'll also bring you Nature Nature Herbs and Supplements and Vitality. You can find it on Facebook, Nature Nature Herbs and Supplements. You go to my health page on Facebook, Healthy Self, Heal Thyself. Ask about me. Is somebody going to point you in my direction, right? Then you go to my page, inbox me, and I'm going to tell you how to get your Nature Nature Herbs and Supplements and Vitality. Y'all better come on in.
And we always support black business, so you know about that. But I'm also about hip hop, and this is what I was trying to get out before we had to figure it out. Is that this is hip hop's 50th anniversary, and if you know me, I'm also known as the hip hop snob. So I'm very, very serious about my hip hop music. It is the soundtrack to my life, and I have a very esteemed guest tonight. I'm glad we was able to get this straightened out. My brother, tell these people one more time who you are and what you do. Okay.
Hey, everybody. My name is Geechee Dan. I'm the co-chairman for the Hip Hop Hall of Fame here in New York. I'm also the host of my show on LL Cool J, Rock the Bells Radio, Sirius XM Channel 43. The name of the show is called Planet of the Tapes, where I play snippets of park jams, block parties, live performances, clubs, skating ring parties, freestyles, old radio shows of all our hip hop pioneers, icons, and legends from the year 1976 to present day. My co-host and DJ for the show, his name is Diamond the Artist. So big salute to Diamond.
And shout out to my man who hooked us up, my brother Tillman.
Yes, Terrence.
Yeah, Terrence Tillman, very, very, very strong brother. Look, and has been on the show before in terms of his love for hip hop and how he's really entrenched into that culture. And he has a connection to you all out east, I guess. So I'm glad. Shout out to him for even thinking about us here on Outlaw Radio. And shout out to Antonia Anderson, who has the Hip Hop 365 Museum here in Milwaukee.
Yes, big salute to her. Big salute to Antonia.
Yeah, and she has ridiculous stuff. And I look at it. How did you even get this? And she has, man, it's crazy. Her collection is wild. But we want to get into and really have a conversation about hip hop tonight. And so I know people want to hear us talk our normal shit, right? Like they want to hear us go in. There's a lot going on in the city. It's a lot going on across America in the city, especially in the black communities.
Yes.
Lives are being wasted and taken and this kind of thing. But I wanted to lighten it up. I had a tough month. I lost some people I loved to some homicide. I said, what cheers me up better than hip hop? Nothing. So we're going to have a conversation about that. There's a number attached to the show. 262-202-5131. 262-202-5131. The chat room's on deck as usual. All my Outlaw family out there ride with us. And if you have any contributions to the conversation, please don't hesitate to give us that. So now, you mentioned a whole bunch of stuff because you talked about the Hip Hop Museum, which a lot of people don't know about the Hip Hop Museum that's actually located in New York. It's been a big deal. It's been a very big deal. It's been controversial in some aspects. We'll talk about that. But now, what's your position again at the Hip Hop Museum?
At the Hip Hop Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame. I'm sorry. Hip Hop Hall of Fame.
Yes. Now, the museum that you're talking about is called the Universal Hip Hop Museum in the Bronx. So that's salute to Rocky Bacano and his team overseeing that museum in the Bronx. Like I stated, I'm the co-chairman for the Hip Hop Hall of Fame, which is located in Harlem, Manhattan.
Oh, okay. So it's a Hall of Fame and it's a museum. All
Right.
right.
There's a Hip
Okay.
Hop Hall of Fame. Right. And there's a Long Island Music Hall of Fame in Long Island in Stony Brook um in Long Island, and there is a National Hip Hop Museum in Washington D.C.
Oh wow. Okay. East Coast got it popping with the saluting the culture, right? Now you
Mhm.
said you're from Queens, New York, right? That's your borough, as they say, right? You're from Queens. Okay.
Yes, I'm originally from Queens. Yes.
Okay. And if people who know about hip hop know, it's almost like a who's who of hip hop from Queens, right?
That's
Um,
correct.
okay, okay. So, but you grew up. What part of Queens are you from? Because there's different parts, right?
St. Albans, Hollis,
Okay,
right down the street from Farmers Boulevard.
okay, okay. And Farmers Boulevard. If people that sound familiar, that's what LL talked about all the time, right?
Farmers, what? Farmers, what?
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah, LL's from the same neighborhood, same community as myself. He actually is about he was about 7 blocks away from me.
Okay.
And growing up together, yes.
And Run DMC is from Queens.
Yes, they actually about 8, 9 blocks away from me in another direction.
Okay,
Fubu, same thing with Fubu. Fubu was about 7 blocks away from me in another direction. Ja Rule is about 10 blocks away from me in one direction. And Tribe Called Quest from Linden Boulevard is about 10 blocks away from me in another
okay,
direction.
okay. So and Queens is infamous for some other things, right? And so we know about that. If you know about hip hop, I mean, we'll talk about that. But you said you are from Queens, so and this is a unique experience because we don't normally get to talk to somebody regionally who's from like ground zero for hip hop. You talk about New York in the 70s and the 80s. This is ground zero. This is where everything comes from. And we want to make
Yes.
sure we give New York their props right now because y'all gonna hear me say some shit tonight about New York that you might not like. And all in fairness, I mean, we like to be objective as well as subjective on Outlaw Radio, and that's why I got you here because I think you represent a fountain of knowledge for a lot of hip hop. You said 1976. Like, come on, like that's
Yeah,
OG, that's OG Mudbone status as we call it.
I did. Yeah, I have a tape from 1976. Yep.
Okay, okay. And so now what with the Hip Hop Hall of Fame, right? How
Hmm.
many artists are currently in the Hip Hop Hall of Fame? Because I don't think we get enough we don't get enough pub for this. This is different
Um,
from a museum. This is the Hall of Fame. This is what they say criteria required.
yes. We don't have that many inductees. We have Tupac.
Okay.
We have had let's see, Kool Herc, I believe Grandmaster Flash, I believe Red Alert, I believe Run DMC. Um I believe that's it.
Okay.
There have been given hip hop awards throughout the year. Every year we giving out a Pioneers Legends Icon Award plaque to individuals worthy of being inside and being in, with the Hip Hop Hall of Fame. And we still building. So
How long
big
y'all
shout
been
out.
at it?
Oh wow! Well, the owner, the CEO, whose name is JT Thompson, he established the Hip Hop Hall of Fame in the '90s, and due to the deaths between the West Coast East Coast situation, and when Biggie Tupac got killed, it kind of shut down a little. It kind of fell back because of the sponsors fell. You know what I'm saying? Once all that was going on, the sponsors pulled out.
Okay. Okay.
So
And so did he restart it or did he went did
yeah,
he
it restarted, but it's slowly um gaining momentum, but it's slowly coming back into place.
Okay. But okay, and we'll talk about all of that because when we've had artists on here, and I've had, like I said, I've been fortunate enough to interview MC Shan, OG Big Mike from the Ghetto Boys, Mac
Mhm.
Mall, Tweed Cadillac from Penthouse Players, AMG. Man, just I've been fortunate enough to talk to some real hip hop people, and we always talk about who we think is best, and different eras and different producers and all this kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
you, as somebody who actually actively works in the Hall of Fame, we're gonna have a very good conversation about who's what and who's who in this
Right.
culture. So I'm glad you're here, and you have a show on XM Radio, correct?
Yes, Sirius XM channel 43 on LL Cool J's Rock the Bells radio. I have a show called Planet of the Tapes where I play snippets of my tapes that I've converted to CD and MP3 file.
Okay.
I digitized everything. I digitized all my tapes to CD and MP3. So every Tuesday, myself and Diamond the artist, my co-host, we play snippets of uh of all the audio, you know, of the pioneers and the legends and the icons in hip hop. I have tapes of everybody.
So now let me ask you a question though. 1976, who
hmm
was rapping on tape in 1976 at a party?
Well, the tape that I have from 1976 was from a crew out of Queens called New Sounds, and they was rocking at a spot in Manhattan called the Superstar Cafe, and there was really no rapping going on in 1976 in Queens at the time in Manhattan. It was more mixing records and just playing music, and
Okay.
that's what was going on in Brooklyn and in Queens and other parts of the Bronx, in Manhattan, basically disco DJs. But at that time, it wasn't called hip hop.
Right.
Respectfully, what was going on in the Bronx was a little bit more authentic, I guess. Which it was a little bit more where we at today than what was going on in Queens and Brooklyn. But I, I look at it as we all got married by 1979. Everybody across the board was doing. We all got married, so we was all doing the same thing at the same time by 1979.
Okay. Okay. And so this was a scene. And once again, it's important to cover this if people who listen to the show sometimes don't really understand the origins of hip hop, because let's face it. I think we can effectively say it now out loud that hip hop changed the world. There was no way. The first rap record that I ever heard, and I'm not that old, but I do remember Rapper's Delight, and it was kind of like, huh, okay. And it went on for, I remember da ha, and I remember,
Mhm.
rapping Ron when he was rapping like Ronald Reagan, and it was this joke of a thing, and it was kind of like a novelty. And all of a sudden, dudes start making songs that became radio hits. And so
Mhm.
it became this whole big thing coming out of New York. Now you were around to see the evolution of the sound. So tell me what it's like going from that disco kind of just in the club partying to 1981. Let's get to 1981 Queens, New York. You said everybody's married. It's coming out the Bronx. What y'all bumping in Queens in 1981?
Basically, what was going on in the Bronx early on was more of break dancing, more of the graffiti, more of the b boys with the breaks with Kool Herc and early L Brothers and Grandmaster Flash. They was rocking more of the break of the song, and the b boys they catered the music to the b boys, the
Okay.
dance to. We wasn't doing that in Queens. Queens was and Brooklyn was known more for disco records and the sound systems.
Okay.
So by 1979, 1980, what was going on in the Bronx and what was going on in Queens and what was going on in Brooklyn, we all became by 1979, everybody was doing the same thing across the board. So now we got rap records 1979, we have the first, I think it's 7, 8 rap records that came out. Spoonie G, Curtis Blow, Sugar Hill Gang, Sequence, Grandmaster Flash, Furious 5, Funky 4. They all came out.
Sugar Hill.
Sugar Hill, right? They all came out in 79. And then by 80, you got Treacherous 3, you got wow, you got a lot. Then you got a lot more other groups coming into the game. Soul Sonic 481. By 1981, you got Soul Sonic Force, you got Jazzy 5, you got Treacherous 3, you got Crash Crew. Um, you had some people from Queens doing had records, release records on the local level, in the like Spider D, DJ Define, Infinity Machine, and you still had the park jams going on in Queens just as well as going on in the Bronx and in Harlem as well. So you had a commercial success going on, merging, and then you have the underground park jam block party still going on. Cold Crush 4, Fantastic 5, Wild Style movie comes out, was being into making by I believe it was in 81. They started putting Wild Style together, the movie, hip hop's first movie. And then it just started spreading like wildfire. Then it started going towards Brooklyn and then Long Island, and then Staten Island had Dr. Rock Force MCs, which became the Force MDs by 83. Fearless 4, Fat Boys, Houdini,
Disco 3.
Disco 3, yes, Roxy and Shantae. Then you started having Run DMC. Then now the second generation is coming out. So you like from 1973 to 1983, you got the first generation. This new sound, this culture called hip hop. Then you got the second generations, LL, Run DMC, Fat Boys, Houdini.
Okay.
You got them start coming down. Russell Simmons opened up the floodgates, and once he saw the vision of hip hop, with the groups that was on being signed to Sugar Hill Records with Sylvia Robinson, he started getting he started getting talent. With Curtis Blow, he had success with managing, and then rap's first hip hop's first gold single, The Breaks by Curtis Blow.
Yeah. And so check this out. I got a chat room. Shout out to my sister Karen Walton. How you doing in Kansas City? Shabaka St. Corey from California. 1976 was the height of the disco era, he says. I see my sister, the proprietor of the Hip Hop 365 Museum here in Milwaukee, Antonia, in the chat room. How you doing, Antonia? Miss Tony, as they used to call her when we worked at St. Charles together back in the days. Jesse Parrish out in Denver, Colorado. He says, I spent my formative years in New York City. I got family who still live in Brooklyn and Queens. Mama Jenkins, how you doing tonight, Mama Jenkins? She said, good evening, Outlaw family. Love the New Yorker accent. Hip hop at its best. That's what it reminds me of. But she didn't finish. Or y'all know I'm remedial. As long as she in the chat room, we good. But tonight we have, like I said, it's for the culture. I'm 50th anniversary of hip hop. That we've been celebrating this and just trying to find a bright spot and a lot of bullshit that's going on. And I feel like hip hop will at least lighten my mood a little bit. So I got this brother Geechee Dan, who is what's your position with the Hip Hop Hall of Fame again? I don't want to misquote it. What is it again?
The co-chairman.
The co-chairman of the Hip Hop Hall of Fame in Harlem?
Yes, sir.
Harlem, New York. And he's also a host of his own show on XM Radio, Rock the Bells, Channel 43, which is my favorite Sirius XM channel. Now, anything from 43 to 50, I rock with. I feel like they cover, and I know there's a 90s channel, I know there's an 80s channel, I know all of this, but for me, from 43 to 50, I can go from Rock the Bells to like old school soul, Motown on the high end, and in between, you catch everything from R&B to 90s hip hop and all this. So If you don't rock with Sirius XM, you better get it because the regular radio, for all intents and purposes, like we say, musically, radio sucks ass. Hip hop radio now is no longer about the music that's played. Back in the days, hip hop radio used to break records. They used to say, "Hey, this is what we got. This is the new sound." You had to call the radio station, like, "Man, let me get that record." Now, hip hop radio is all about the clickbait and the talking and the interviews. Like, and they you listen to the music, it's like, man, it's like the same 7 songs. So I had to throw that out there. But so he's on Sirius XM. So if y'all want to holler at this brother, give us a call. Um, she said, it reminds me of the hip hop around the Rucker Park. It used to be popping. Mama Jenkins been around Rucker Park. Let me find out Mama Jenkins been at the Rucker. Come on now, Mama Jenkins. She said it remind me of the hip hop around the Rucker Park, player. So we have a conversation about hip hop tonight with this brother. He's very knowledgeable, as you can tell. So I wanted to I had some talking points written down. Kamar, as usual, feel free to launch your dart whenever it is that you see fit. Y'all share the show, share the show, share the show. We started off a little rough tonight. I had some technical shit, but we got it together. We got it together. So my brother, you talked about the generations, which is very pivotal. Like, I think that's because I didn't come in with the first. I came of age with the second generation.
Yes, so did I. I came in at the tail end of the first generation around 1982. I started listening to the hip hop shows that were on late at night. There was no primetime hip hop radio going on yet. Everything that was playing hip hop was being played after midnight or 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, Wednesday night, Tuesday night. You had Zulu Beats. You had the world famous Supreme Team show. Mr. Magic used to come on around midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning on WHBI 105.9 FM radio. You had Jerry Bloodrock, rest in peace to him. You had WBAU Spectrum City, which I got down with WBAU at Delphi University in Long Island and Garden City. We had
that too. Like, people don't know about WBAU. They don't know about that. Like, that's where PE comes from, correct?
Right. That's my family. That's my music, my radio family.
Okay.
When Chuck D was Chucky D and MC DJ Flavor, and you had Hank and Keith Shockley, which the Bomb Squad.
Yes, sir.
And so you had Dr. Dre from UNTV Rap. He was doing and Mr. Bill Stephanie, that was an executive, one of the first executives at Def Jam recording.
Yeah.
So you had all these these geniuses, I would call them. We all I got down with BAU probably around 1984 because I was still in high school, and I used to go to I used to travel from Queens to Long Island Monday nights from 10 o'clock at night to 1 o'clock in the morning. And, by the time I get home, it'd be 3 o'clock in the morning. And, I used to hear how Chuck D, he basically was saying that hip hop is going to take over R&B. It's going to take over pop music. It's going to change everything in music. And sure enough, it did. And he said this back in 1986.
Okay. But there's so and I see people in the chat room now. Like I said, in the interest of keeping everything outlawish, I love engaging my chat room. Once again, if y'all want to call, the number scrolling across the bottom of the screen. I'll let you mans. It is Outlaw Radio for the culture, another component in my continuous celebration of hip hop, 50th anniversary of hip hop. So I got this brother Geechee Dan here, he's already pulling this together from a real first person perspective. So Shabaka says R&B was the 1960s, disco was the 70s, and hip hop was after that. But Shabaka, you left out soul and funk in the 70s for black people. I don't think you could just say the disco was the music of the 70s, because some of the most poignant black music ever created through funk and through soul. When you talking about the Shy Lights and the whole Philly movement, you talking about Chicago soul with Jerry Butler and all these dudes. Like, and then we got George Clinton, man, the mothership, baby. We can't leave that out. We're gonna talk about our music. So I hear you, Shabaka, like Young Buck, you don't know nothing about that. He said, please change the negative lyrics of rap and hip hop. Positive lyrics can change the negative elements. We're gonna get to that. This is where I'm
Yes.
going with my brother. We're gonna get to that. Shay says hip hop radio is now trash. The underground is where it's at now, not the mainstream. Mama Jenkins said, yeah, Tiny Archibald and some of the old timers, we were great friends. I used to go to Studio 54 clubbing. Give it up for Mama Jenkins. We did not know that, right? Shout out to Mama Jenkins. She said, I used to be out there with Tiny Archibald. Keaton Gerard, my brother K Rice, how you doing? Live from Houston, Ace Town in the building. He said, yes, I love this show, bro. PE was my favorite group aside from BDP. That's where we're going. I'm driving this. I'm trying to drive slow. I want to speed up, but I'm trying to drive slow. So, my brother, we talk about some pivotal things that happened during this second generation. And people who, when we talk social commentary on this show, always reference it, which is the crack era. And you being from Queens, New York, bear witness to a very crucial times when it comes to the introduction of crack cocaine and its effect on our community and the start of the crack epidemic. Talk about what happened, because in a lot of ways, Queens and Milwaukee, the North Side, kind of mirror each other. There's these kind of black middle class community, because y'all are different. Y'all not like Harlem or those other places where everybody live in these big ass tenements. Y'all live in homes. Y'all got a middle class, black people with jobs, raising their kids. So let's talk about what happens at the same time as that hip hop is exploding in Queens, New York.
While hip hop was exploding in Queens, New York, the drug scene was also right along with it. Unfortunately, the fashion, the Mighty Shirt Kings, FUBU later, and then like Dapper Dans in Harlem, all that was associated with the drug dealers and the rappers, and hip hop was going. We wanted to emulate the drug dealers, and then as it started shifting, it started turning into the drug dealers want to emulate the rappers.
Okay.
Later on.
Kind of like with our generation as we go into 90s, because the 90s is easily my golden era, right? It's my magnum opus for hip hop music. It went from we wanted to emulate the drug dealers in terms of we want to sell it, but then it changed into now we want to emulate the hypes. We want to be pill poppers. We want to be high. We don't want to just be the dealers. We want to get high of our own supply. So it changed in that regard. But I think the Queens thing is very pivotal because some events happened in Queens, New York that actually changed where the dope game even was in terms of how they started to charge us. You know, it went from, we about to start throwing RICO acts at these dudes because
that was because of the cop that got killed. And when that cop got killed in Southside Jamaica, Queens, it changed everything because now you got President Bush on national TV talking about we need to shut down Queens. He wasn't talking about the Bronx. He wasn't talking about Harlem. He wasn't talking about Brooklyn. He was talking about Queens.
Okay.
When they murdered that cop, George, what was his name? Barnes, I believe his name. I can't remember.
It wasn't Barnes because my last name is Barnes. It was, but I know was
Burns.
It Braun?
Burns, I think it was Burns.
Edward Burns.
Edward Burns. Right.
Yeah, okay.
When they murdered that cop, that rookie cop, it brought a lot of heat, attention to Queens. And that they came, when the feds came, they came and shut down Queens. And they basically shut down that element. Now, when they shut down that element, more people shifted because now remember this is 1986, 1987. You already had now Salt and Pepper was coming out from Queens, Run DMC, LL Cool J.
It's Cool G Rap. Cool G Rap is from
Cool
Queens.
G Rap is from Queens. Yes, Cool G Rap started coming out. Then you got Brooklyn. You had Stetson Sonic. You got the Fat Boys, you got Houdini, you got
Shantae's from
UTFO,
Queens.
Roxanne Shante, MC Shan, Queensbridge from Queens. All that was emerging out from Queens and Brooklyn, and then Long Island jumped on the bandwagon. And you got Bismarck, and you got Public Enemy, you got Rakim, you got coming from the Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul. All these groups started coming emerging because now the hip hop started shifting again. It started doing the shift, and then the West Coast, and then you had Two Live Crew from the South, and then like by 88, 89, now you got West Coast.
Yeah,
Because what happened was it wasn't planned. It was planned like that. So now you started getting reality rap. You starting to get gangster rap because other cities wanted to tell their story, but they wanted to tell it in their accent and how they talk,
right,
and in their environment, and it worked for them because somebody from California can't emulate somebody from the East Coast and can't. And the slang, see, they started developing their own slang, their own terminology, and they started just doing them and started talking about their environment. And
but doesn't the East Coast see? I hear East Coast dudes say that, but doesn't the East Coast have to say Schoolie D is from Philadelphia, right?
Yes.
And he makes PSK. That's really the first gangster rap song.
Yeah, but NWA took it a step further.
Right. No doubt. But Ice-T actually, before NWA, he did it with 6 in the morning. And first of all, coming off of the movie Colors, the two differences in those cultures is one is New York was more heavily drug dealer based, like with the big gold chains, and but the West Coast was about gang banging. So the West Coast was about Crips and Bloods and whatnot. So yeah, that transitions happens. But I want to go back just a little bit to I want even with New York, because even though you said they came and shut down Queens, obviously, but by that time, Harlem, Brooklyn, all these other different boroughs, the Bronx, took the drug shit, and it went even further. Because once Queens, then you start getting, because then I always hear Brooklyn dudes say Brooklyn came right on the heels of Queens' demise and basically housed the game. You got Kane, you got Big. How many rappers come from Brooklyn, right? Okay. So I just want to talk about,
like I said, once Russell Simmons got into when he started Def Jam, and he started knocking down doors, the flood from Queens started floodgating the industry, and then once that, then it trickled down to Brooklyn, and then Brooklyn was right behind Queens, and then Long Island.
Okay.
And then it started spreading in New Jersey. And see, because what happens is with hip hop, people want to be involved. They passionate. They like what they're hearing, but they want to be able to tell their own experience, their way, with their accent, and their lingo, and their environment. Our environment in Queens was not like the environment in Compton to a certain degree. We didn't have helicopters. Like for instance, we didn't have helicopters. We still had police brutality, but we didn't have helicopters flying all over like it did like in Compton.
Right. But actually, Compton starts off as a middle class kind of place for Black people to get away from Los Angeles and move. It was just middle class in its inception, right? So we are closer than we think we are. Right. We're only a few words away. But here's the thing that's always crazy about when we get to East Coast and West Coast. And I wanted to take my time with that because I can't even say most. I'm going to say every great West Coast artist, every hip hop fan from the West Coast loves and pays homage to New York. They will readily tell you that, look, I learned about rap hearing it come from New York. But at a lot of points throughout the history of this, New York has not showed the same love back. New York has kind of been like looking down his nose saying, yeah, whatever. Like when it's like they say this is our thing, right? And it's
Right,
exclusive to us. And so I
right.
wanted to talk about that New York. Rakim say the New York state of mind. I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, New York people from New York can be arrogant, very arrogant, and they can also be a little condescending, and they also can be they also feel like hip hop. We own hip hop, and hip hop started in the Bronx or hip hop started in New York. So now they want to keep it to themselves. They want to contain something that's explode. That's they hip hop exploded all over the country, but New York wants to feel like being that it started in New York, we want to be able to contain it. And you can't put hip hop in a box. Once different cities got exposed to hip hop, it was game over. It was a matter of time before another region takes over what we started, because now you got more artists, you got more people from these cities that wanted to they got the same passion, they got that same energy, and they don't want to sell drugs no more, and they don't want to be with gang, they don't want to gang bang no more. So now they got an outlet, and and they took it to another level, they took it down another street, they took it to somewhere else where
Right.
hip-hop wasn't. you know MC Hammer, he used his talent as a dancer, he took it to another level in this direction. Young MC, Tone Loc, they took it
Huh.
to a
Pop
pop
hit.
level.
Pop
Right.
hit.
They made it
Right.
pop, and they
So
took it to another level.
so Mama Jenkins says, I just want to give kudos to our own Dr. Robert Biko Baker on the Source, our hip hop magazine. I was a big reader of the Source. Man, I love the Source. I wish I still had. We had a flood in the house I grew up in, and I lost every source from probably about 1988 to about 99. I had all of those issues. Shabaka says soul and funk were intertwined. Keep cave beasts away from our music. Fuck Eminem, Vanilla Ice, the Shy Lights, Jerry Butler, Curtis Mayfield, Lou Rawls, and the Emotions, and many more were from down the coast of the mill from Shy. Yes, that's what I said. Chicago soul. That's what I said, Shabaka. You get Chicago has an imprint on every era of music, from blues. You go all the way back to Cadillac Chess Records, all the way up. Chicago's always, and even with hip hop, even today with drill music. I mean, we don't like it, but it's still a very big impact. Jesse says, what are his thoughts on the beef between MC Shan and KRS One? The bridge wars he's talking about. I'm gonna talk to you about that because I spoke with MC Shan about it. I think I pissed him off a little bit when he was on the show. We'll talk about the bridge wars because that represents the start of something different in hip hop as well. Um, Shabaka said I liked Eric B and Rakim. Yes, Eric B and Rakim was. I mean, come on, man. I mean, listen. Hey, that's a whole different conversation. He said California is a state, not a city. Yeah, but California was represented. Did I say the city? Did somebody say it was a city? I think we all
I
know it's
didn't
a
say.
state.
I said the West Coast. You had the Bay Area. You had Los
Right,
Angeles. You had San Diego with jail felony. So
right.
you had different
Yeah,
sections, different
yeah.
parts of the state that was doing their thing.
Right. Well, we had Mac Ball on here, and he talked about that. He's E40's cousin from Vallejo.
Right,
So we had the shout out to the Bay Area, and we had Conscious Daughters on here.
right.
Kamara, I know you don't even remember that. We had the one who's still I think the one who's still alive. She was on here. Coogee Rap is from Queens. We said that. I think I'm just catching up with the chat room, y'all. So people, they
Yeah,
just
Gucci Rap is from Queens, no doubt.
yeah. He
We
said that
salute
was
to him.
mainly Los Angeles. I think he's talking about the gangster rap. Once again, I'm just catching up the chat room, y'all. Let me see. This be the hard part of trying to walk and chew gum at the same time. He said, was Marley Marl from Queens? Marley Marl was from Queens,
From
wasn't he?
Queens, yes, he was from
Right.
Queensbridge.
The co-chilling record was Fly Tie from Queens? I heard his, Fly Tie, the executive from
From Cold Chilling
co-chilling.
Records.
Yeah, was he
He
from
was from
Queens as
Queens.
well? Okay.
Yes.
I've did extensive the Juice Crew. I'm telling you, man, I've done so much research. I've heard some great interviews from Fly Tie. I would love to interview him. He said East Coast hip hop was rocking. Nobody can talk like the folk. This is Mama Jenkins, by the way. She said
Mhm.
East Coast hip hop was rocking. Nobody could talk like the folks from New York. Def Jam brought it out for the East Coast. Mama Jenkins is blowing me away tonight. I did not know. You never know. Scooty D is from Philly. Ice T is from South. Okay, people. Yeah, we know that. Compton is its own city. Exactly. We understand that. Shabaka, southeast of Los Angeles. He said they're just basically saying who's from where. K Rice says Sir Mix-a-Lot. Sir Mix-a-Lot's from Seattle. And MC Hammer's from Oakland. So that's the Bay Area. So we know that.
Now
So
let me put this in perspective. How hip hop was a let's put this like this out here. Hip hop was a big a pot of gumbo, right? You had the recipe gumbo, and the Bronx said, "Hey, let's start this recipe called gumbo." And then Queens was like, "Yeah, we already doing something similar to that. Let's add on to what you're doing." And then Brooklyn said, "Hey, let's add on to what you doing, and let's contribute to this pot of gumbo." Then somebody from New Jersey said, "Hey, we love gumbo. We don't necessarily agree with the original ingredients, but can we add something?" Sure. Well, can we add a carrot? Then the South got a hold of this recipe called gumbo, and they said, "Hey, we from the South. Let's add some shrimp." Okay, cool. And then the Midwest said, "Hey, let's throw on some Cajun shrimp."
cheese, goddamn.
And then right, and then the West Coast got a hold of it and said, "Hey, let's add some chicken."
Weed to it.
Yeah, let's add some chicken to it. And then
Let's smoke some weed before we eat so it tastes better.
right, and then other
So no,
parts,
infuse it with weed, right?
Right, West Coast. Yeah, yeah.
There we go.
and that's just what happened. You got all these ingredients, called hip hop that contribute to adding to the recipe.
Okay, and so
Right.
Shabaka made a comment, and we've had this discussion on this show as well. And shout out to my brother Lord Jamar from the Brand Nubians. If you know, you know. When he said years back, and they had their panties in a bunch because he said white people are guests in the house of hip hop, and I didn't think it was an issue with it. But it became a very controversial statement. So people say, well, Eminem and you know pop music and those some real hip hop purists say Hammer, yeah, he sold a lot of records, but he was one of the things that fucked up hip hop because he crossed it over like nobody else did, and it was never the same after that because all of a sudden he's jumping off buildings of Taco Bell commercials with Hammer pants on, and he's got cartoons, and that music wasn't. And even the most purest Hammer fan would have to say Hammer lyrically is meh at best, right? Like I've heard, I talked to Bay Area brothers who say, "Nah, we rock with Hammer because he's from like we." I talked to Mac Mall about this, and he said, "No, we rock with Hammer, but in terms of his music, nah, we wasn't necessary. We didn't consider that like premium hip hop, but it took hip hop to the next level, right?
It took it another direction.
Okay.
I wouldn't say another level. It took hip hop another lane. It created another lane in hip hop that no one traveled. He opened up another street. Hey, then you know what? Everybody's doing this on this street, on this boulevard. Let me come this way. Let me use my talent and contribute to hip hop this way. Okay. And open up another avenue, another opportunity, another way to take hip hop to another direction. JJ Fad did that.
JJ Fad.
Wu-Tang did that. Somebody came in the game and said, "Hey, lyrically, I can do this." Tupac came and he did that. He took it another direction. Another Eminem came in and took it to an audience that didn't necessarily didn't.
Well, they wanted because white people were rocking with Beastie Boys. They were rocking with, they were rocking with rap before. I mean, some of the biggest fans, and this is funny, some of the biggest NWA fans and Wu-Tang fans in the world are white. If
Oh,
Wu-Tang
wait.
comes to Milwaukee right now and does a show, it's gonna be full of white people. It's gonna be some
Right.
brothers there. It's gonna be the backpackers, as we call them. Or as old as we are, on the backpack full of medication now. But I'm just saying, but no, white people, they have been vested once this game once it became something that they parents noticed and start to hate, they embraced it because
Right.
they wanted to piss their parents off. And I look at now, I remember being in middle school in 7th grade, and I was in I might as well toot my own horn. I was in a program for the academically talented, which meant I was in the class with all white kids, right? And not
Mhm.
that they're smarter, but this is the way NPS was set up. So people, you can't think white ice is colder. No. So I mean, I was already feeling the burn because I'm riding from the hood on the bus with everybody else get to the school. They go to this class. Why y'all put me over here? So these little dudes, it's the hair band era for white kids, I guess. It's Bon Jovi and all these kinds of rock stars, right? And so all these rock bands, I can't name them all, AC/DC, whatever. And so they are talking, we're in class and they're talking about, y'all got our Walkmans on, and they talking, man, we love AC/DC. Who's better? Guns N' Roses? No, Bon Jovi. What are you listening to, Kevin? And I said, Big Daddy Kane. And they thought it was the funniest shit in the world. They was like, oh my God, what's his name? Why do they call him Big Daddy? And I'm looking at them like, what the fuck is so like, y'all? This is Kane I'm listening to. This is Long Live the Kane. This is when this was out. This is no half stepping, right? Like, and I'm looking at them like, I know I got to get the hell up out of this class. 2-3 years later, after, like I said, their parents started to notice it and say, I hate that nigger music. They said, well, let's listen to this shit. And then they kind of took it because in terms of money, ain't no rap money without white people money, right? Like that's the difference between going gold and going platinum. You get black money, you be BET famous, or your ass be ABC famous, right? Like, so
Right.
white
Right.
money kind of tilted the coffers. And that's when it became, oh, this is marketable. Oh, let's put
Right.
together these tours. And so
Hip
that's
hop.
why I always say about the East Coast is they should have always showed everybody love because the Fresh Fest and all that stuff that started back in New York back in the days with Houdini, and them concerts sold out across the Midwest. They
Yes.
sold out in California. So
Yes. And then like I said, hip hop, can you imagine a culture where everybody sounds the same and nobody wanted to, respectfully, LL, everybody can't be LL Cool J.
right,
Everybody can't sound like Ice Cube. Everybody can't sound like Soul Sonic Force. Everybody can't sound like Big Daddy Kane. So somebody in St. Louis said, hey, I may not be lyrical, but I love hip hop, and I think that I could do this, and I can, and that's what Nelly did. Two Live Crew went and they went in another direction,
right,
and so you got all these people. When hip hop got grabbed, when hip hop came to their city from somebody from the East Coast performing, they gravitated towards hip hop. When they left, they said, "Hey, I could do what Run DMC is doing. I could do what LL's doing," and that's just what happened.
right.
Outcasts,
I
hey,
mean,
them guys
oh my goodness.
they don't know nothing about Atlanta and the culture in the South, and they don't know about all that. So they don't know about the slang and the terminology and the environment and all that, and
And see,
and so they
that's where I get mad at. This is the only thing I do get mad at about Rock the Bells. This is what
Mhm,
I do get mad at, right? Like, I think that some really, really great hip hop artists
mhm.
do not get the spins. And then I hear some East Coast artists, I'm just being honest, that love
Go
Rock
ahead.
the
Yeah,
Bells.
there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, go ahead.
I hear some East Coast artists who I know from being a listener at the time weren't big hits. They were known. They didn't sell a lot of records. They just had a song that was known. Where you got some West Coast artists who sold millions of records who get very few spins. And I'm even surprised they're Too Short a lot of times, but I get Too Short because Too Short's still out here. He plays a lot of new music. He don't
Mm,
even really dig into West Coast craze to play Selly Cell and a lot of the click stuff, E40
mhm,
stuff, you know, South Central Cartel, Spice One, Like a lot of
Mhm.
that West Coast music. And if you go down south, I'm still upset they don't give 8 Ball and MJG and UGK no Buns on there. I get it, Bun B's on there.
Mhm.
But UGK's catalog is super deep. And I'm
Yes.
like, they don't play like you got Mr. Mike and all these dudes, Big Mike. I had OG Big Mike on the show, and I understand that he had an issue with Rap a Lot back in the days. But even some of the Rap a Lot artists, Big Mello and all these kinds of dudes that we used to listen to, and we went to the record store and bought their records and we went to their concerts. Sometimes I feel like they need to get what I call an AOR platform. If you know radio, it used to be a thing called AOR, which was
Mhm.
album oriented rock, in which it
Mhm.
was a radio format in which they didn't play the hits. They played the best songs off the album. And
Mhm.
so I feel like we need to go because usually the lead song, that's the big song, ain't the best song on the album. Right.
Right.
Like, I could look at a million different artists and a million different albums, and people know them for one song. And I'd be like, yeah, but there's 2 or 3 songs on that album that's better. So what I feel like sometimes Rock the Bells, and I know they're doing big things, and I mean, LL, I can't even, I can't criticize him. Like, he's doing great things for the culture, but I just think there needs to be an investment because how many times have I heard and rest in peace and happy birthday to MC Breed from Michigan, right? There's a whole movement from Michigan with the Dayton family and the
Yes.
DFC and MC Breed and
Mhm.
all this kind of stuff. And Detroit has their props. We get that, but that music is brushed over too. So I'll be feeling like, man, Top Authority and all this kind of stuff. Somebody, they need to get somebody
It's a
who's
let me explain something to you. Now, Rock the Bells just was formulated what maybe 3 years ago.
about 3. Yeah.
Give it some time, brother. Like
Okay.
it's a lot of work that goes into this, and
Okay.
he's being bombarded with new content and building up the brand.
Okay.
I I just got on Rock the Bells a year ago. Today was my 1 year anniversary, and I have so much content, different type of shows to do. It's not an I don't have enough time to do all the shows I want to do in a year. But give it some time. I'm going to do a West Coast hip hop tribute show. I'm going to do a Hispanic hip hop tribute show. I'm going to do a Bay Area hip hop tribute show. I'm going to do a South hip hop, Southern hip hop tribute show. I'm going to do a go-go hip hop tribute show. I'm going to do a reggae hip hop tribute show. I'm
Okay.
going to do an international hip hop tribute show. I've already done a Philadelphia hip hop tribute show. I've already done a Five Boroughs tribute show. So there's a lot of more work that needs to be done, and it's going to take time. But give me some time. Trust me,
Okay.
you're going to like some new shows that I'm going to be doing.
Okay.
That's coming up on Planet Other Tapes, because what's happening is I'm taking it to another level. I'm taking the tape game and going somewhere where it has never been gone before. And
Okay.
you have to start including everybody that contributed hip hop. And a lot of New Yorkers don't want to do that. They want to keep hip hop in the box, as I said earlier in the show. And we can't you can't keep hip hop in a box. You can't just keep saying the Bronx, the Bronx, the Bronx. You can't. The narrative has changed. We it's not fair to E40. It's not fair to Nelly. It's not fair to the Two Live Crew. It's not fair to the Midwest. Um, and in the South, and artists from San Diego and Kansas City. You know,
Shit, Ohio Bone and
Ohio. Yeah, so it's going to take time to represent and have everyone involved. That's why I've decided to get involved more with the museum business, because that's going to allow me to have a entity where everybody can be involved, because everyone contribute to hip hop. So now I'm reaching out to different artists all over the world, not just the
okay.
country, all over the world. Say, hey brother, hey sister, you need to have your items preserved here. You
Okay.
know, and so because we need to start being more inviting to everyone that contributed hip hop.
Or maybe
And
not, though. Or maybe not. And I'm gonna tell you why.
Mhm.
Mama Jenkins says this is why people need to listen to Outlaw Radio. They'll get great information. Tonight is learning night about hip hop. Shout out to Mama Jenkins. Listen, if we're gonna talk about it, let's talk about it. Like everybody, my generation, we love hip hop, but a lot of people just don't know where it comes from, and they don't know some of the architects behind what and what's behind what. So, Jesse Parrish, he says the Busy Bee versus Cool Mo D battle changed how people rap. That's what I'm saying. Once you start this conversation, it becomes a wildfire because everybody got something that they like to, as an observation of the culture.
Right.
Let's see. He says K Rice is in Houston. He's in H-Town. He said they play tons of local Southern rap on the radio here. Screwed Up has an entire day on Prime Radio here. I don't know about the other cities in the South. Yeah, we know H-Town got their own whole. That's a
Sound.
whole
That's
movement.
a whole movement, right?
Yeah, that's a whole, and it's like California where it's so regional that you can actually tour. If you're an artist in Texas, you can tour Texas and make
Yep.
money and sell a
And
record in Texas. Like if you're
right.
from California and you sold your record from Northern California all the way to Southern California, you can make a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
And then of course that whole region will support you. So yeah, we know H-Town has that. He said, shout out to Selly Sales Spice One. Yeah. Young Lay, Mac Mall. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Drew Down and that kind of thing. It's all contributions. I'm not the biggest No Limit fan, but shout out to the South. Top Authority. He said, yeah. He said he was in Michigan when they came out. Antonio Anderson said, yes, the museums. K. Rice says it's too big to box it in. They want the exposure. Now they have to share it. It's called evolution. Everything must do so.
Yep.
Antonia's agreeing with you. She said, right on, Geechee Dan. So I want to say this. I kind of still admired the hardcore New York boom bap. Kind of like that's why I liked Griselda, right? Because I thought that they took it back to a time and a sound sonically with hip hop that's just gone away. So I think first of all, New York deserves to be cocky about it, right? It's like your baby, and if as your child grow up, you're gonna be protective of it, and you don't want him to go and play with certain people because it get him in trouble. You don't want him to be over here and over there. So I get it, but when it comes to the point where it makes you discount some other artist's contribution is where it becomes a problem, right? So we talked
Yeah.
about the East Coast West Coast war, and which was not even a war. The fact that we call it a war, but the beef, I would say, it existed long before Tupac because of New York's initial bias. Easy
Yeah.
E starts rapping because Dre's trying to produce some dudes from New York who are saying, man, we ain't gonna be saying no 6'4" and no 40 ounce and no gas
Right.
and all that.
Exactly. Can you imagine if if Dr. Dre was successful with some guys from Queens, it wouldn't be no NWA. This is what I was talking about earlier. People said, "Hey, I want to do that, but I want to be able to sound like my environment from Los Angeles, our lingo, our slang. We don't know nothing about no 6'4s in Queens." So that's why it worked for NWA. And then that's why the hip hop is where it is today, because not everybody can't be, everybody said, you know what, I'd like respectfully New York and Brooklyn and the lyrical Biggie, and I like lyrics and stuff like that, the hardcore and all that. But now I want to hear something that I can relate to in my environment, in my city, in my town. So that's where hip hop grew up. The kids said, hey, I'm going to college. I'm not going to be in New York in college. I want to go to California in college. And then now you're adopted to that environment in Los Angeles with the people you ride the trains with and the people you hang out with and the lingo and the slang and the environment. Then you started being in that environment, and then now you're making music according to your environment.
And a lot of people
that's the beauty of hip hop.
A lot of people say New York is hypocritical because they always talk down on gangster rap, but what reinvigorated New York's rap scene was gangster rap.
Exactly.
Puffy and Biggie, because first of all, what we know now is that Biggie was originally a protege of Tupac, and Tupac already had been. His music was heavily West Coast, And so Biggie's, I remember listening to it back in the day saying, like, okay, now this is just East Coast gangster rap. But it was cool then. Like it was like, okay, well, that's now we can accept it. But that's just another demonstration of the bias of New York. It's just kind of like, yeah, so what? And it's that thing that keeps the fire burning though. I think you can't have friendly rap. I think if regions got along, the levels wouldn't go up. You can't
Right,
tell me that when when New York saw what Dre and them did, then Puffy and them came and they saw what Dre and them saw what they did, and then down south, he saw what they were doing. Like the level just kept rising because of everybody doing their thing, right? But
right.
you
And
know,
not accepting what somebody else was doing. And that was really something that was going on big in New York. We wasn't accepting what nobody else was doing because we wanted to just be biased to New York sound and and lyrics.
right. Shout out to
You
Terrence
know,
Tillman in the chat room. I see you, brother Terrence. Shout out to you for the connection between my brother Geechee Dan and myself. I always thought it's funny when Too Short says, after 2 platinum albums, they call me weak because I don't sell records in the East.
Yeah.
So, and that was long before Tupac even said a word about East Coast, West Coast. So, the misnomer is that it also doesn't help that you still got a lot of dudes. I see Clark Kent coming out talking about Tupac is the reason Biggie's dead, and don't get me started with your other man's over there, Funk
Funk Master
Flex.
Flex.
I mean, you still hear these dudes come out and be like, nah, son, that shit was garbage, yo. And I'd be like, dude, after all this time, with the impact that the rest of the artists in the game have made, you still can't say, hey man, that's some shit right there. If you don't like it, you don't like it. So you don't have to say I like it. But I just feel like you got to at least acknowledge it and say, yo, them dudes did their thing with it. Like when I had Shan on here, he was pretty much like, bah. Like he was like, man, that music, yeah. He didn't say that, but he kind of insinuated it. Like there was still
Right.
kind of a thing, like, man, we don't, that's not real rap music. Like that's not quality. But also,
I
Shan
think
was mad at me because I said I like KRS-One and Kane. So he was already like, what? You everybody who you fans of, I made them. It was a great MC Shan.
I think if music had stayed like, you know what I mean, where it originated at, it never grew.
Right.
It
Thank you.
could never grow.
That's what I
Like, you know what
thank
I'm
you.
saying?
It would have never grew.
Everything has got to spread. You know what I'm saying? Like you talk about what we do. You know what I mean? Talking about black people, our influence on music. Yeah, we started jazz. We started rock and roll. You know what I mean? And all that shit evolved into a whole nother genre of music.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's all it is. And again, it's just another test to our creativity also. You know
Right.
what I mean? How
Yes.
we can take something and put our own twist to it and make everybody love it.
Right. It
Yep.
made
That's
it made our world smaller because how am I on the show with a brother from Queens and I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, right?
Right.
Like so hip hop is the connection here. Like it bridges that gap. Like this is what I'm saying. We should have been more celebratory of our brilliance as opposed to, but I get it. I get it. The heat of it. It's like when I watched Cadillac Records and Muddy Waters was mad at what's dude name? Smokestack Lightning. He was mad at him. He showed him the pistol, said, hey, you can have it. She come with this, right? And it's when I look at it at all of this, Motown and they weren't in celebration of Philadelphia and their emergence. It was like competition makes the fire burn hotter. And so I get it. That's why I said I kind of get New York's attitude. And I think if they all acquiesce and said, no, it wouldn't be authentic. Like when I see Raekwon and I see Ghostface and they own a full Wu-Tang East Coast steel shit. If they came on and talked very proper and said, no, hip hop is beautiful, I'd be like, oh, that's bullshit. I need for him to stay him. Like I
right.
need for Snoop to stay Snoop. I need for him,
Right. Exactly.
I need for people to stay the way they are. So in that
You need
regard, I don't necessarily think it was a bad thing.
right. And that's the same thing with the museum game right now. The museum game is the same way. It's no different than the artist game. Same thing with the museums. The museums got to be able to reach out to all regions and invite them into their establishment because they contribute. If you're going to have a universal museum, then it should be universal. Everybody should be able to donate and have their items archived and preserved in this museum, not just the Bronx. That still goes on today here in New York today. I'm in the Bronx. I live in the Bronx right now.
Oh wow.
So when I go and talk to different people from the Bronx about doing different things, they can't see past, like they can see right here. They can't see up here. Like they still stuck on they say they still stuck in time. Like they want to hold on to this narrative and they want to keep holding on to the narrative. They don't want nobody to add on to the narrative, and they don't want nobody to take away from the narrative. They just want to continue holding on to this narrative. And that's not going to be able to work for me. And I've had problems with people that wants to continue hold on to the narrative. I've ran into people like that, and I'm like, dude, you can't see past the George Washington Bridge.
Hey,
you still want to hold on something that's global.
Hey, that's
you
like,
want to continue.
That's like how you got some of the old school players, you know what I mean, that try to hold on to their glory days. You know
right.
what I'm saying?
Right.
Let it go, man. Let it go, man. Let the young players have it, man, and take off with it.
Get out the way, right? Okay, so let me catch my chat room again. Shout out to everybody in the chat room, man. The number's 262-202-5131. Outlaw Radio for the culture. Got my brother Geechee Dan here from Sirius XM. Rock the Bells Radio is a very instrumental part of the Hip Hop Hall of Fame in Harlem, and just what they call a diplomat of the culture. And I can appreciate that you are from all of these eras, and you can still recognize the beauty and everything. So Antonia says, every hip hop environment is different. Everyone's story, perspective is different. Everyone brought something to the culture. That's that gumbo that my brother Geechee Dan was talking about. He said it became regional. Yeah, we know it started on the East. That lyric from Too Short is actually Jesse on In the Trunk from Shorty the Pimp album. It's not from Rappers Ball. Rappers Ball was him and E40. That was a Softy Heezy for Sheezy, My Neezy with Jodeci singing on the hook. Let me see. FBA started all the music genres in America. Yes, we did. That is once again the brilliance of our people. My brother K. Rice says, it appeared to me that a lot of East Coast artists didn't respect non-intellectual rap. Once the thought of what you're rapping about became predictable, it was a rap. No respect if your next in line is predictable. In a nutshell. Thank you, K. Rice, because I wanted to ask this brother, what was his favorite era? Like, instead of doing the top 5 dead or alive, everybody does that. I want because the conscious era is one thing. You call it reality rap. I called it the gangster rap. The whole Southern takeover is an era. What's your favorite era? If you go when you riding, what you playing? What era is the one that
I
you
think
say?
from 1980, I say 1985 to 1996.
Spot on.
My favorite era.
Spot on.
Because you had the most. That was the era with the most diversity in the culture. You had Biz Markie, you had Big Daddy Kane, you had Chaos One, you had Rakim, you had Public Enemy, you had Fresh Prince, you had LL Cool J, you had Ice-T, you had NWA, Two Live Crew, Too Short. Then you had Jay-Z was about to come, Biggie.
Right.
Then you had Wu-Tang Clan, you had Nas. You had Fat Boys, you had Hammer, you had Houdini, you had you had Ice Cube,
right? It's so many.
Shy D, you had
Ghetto
then
Boys,
MC Breed, South was coming up, so
UGK. I'm talking about
UGK. Yeah, so this was a prime example of hearing the best of hip hop. Not like it is today. You're not hearing the best of our culture. And for years, I got tired of hearing and getting this global perception of our culture as the bottom of the barrel. Like when you cook food and you scrape it off the bottom. I always thought that that was the worst representation of our culture. I want people to hear and see the best of our culture. Instead of, like LL once said about presenting hip hop in the plastic in a paper bag, we need to present hip hop on in China, like in wine glasses and China and
Right, yeah.
China dishes, and plates and forks and knives instead of plastic spoons, you know.
Now, do you DJ, or because I know you said you got the cassettes. Now, do you have you ever really tried to get in the industry? Like, I'm a rapper, I'm a
Yeah,
make
I used to
tracks.
run. Yeah, I had a record deal back in 1986. I had a record deal,
Okay,
but
okay.
my mother, my mother's Jehovah's Witness. So every time I tried to do something in hip hop, she shut me down.
Oh wow. Okay,
Yes.
okay.
So this is why I'm so passionate now today, because I felt like my mother, um, I got to play catch up now, pretty much. That's the way I feel about it. I feel like I got to play catch up because I wanted to do this back when I was a teenager and I wasn't allowed to do it. So now that I'm back using the tapes as a way of a lane to create, I created my own lane with the tapes to come back and have an impact, do something iconic, do something global. Those are the key words that I rock with today. If it ain't global, if it ain't iconic, and if it doesn't have an impact, then I don't need to be bothered with it. I need to that's the three things that I go with. If it's classic, it got to be iconic. Any chess move that I do, I make sure that it is going to have an impact on the culture. I
Yeah.
make sure there's going to be something iconic. I'm going to make sure it's going to be global.
And once again, I it's so many different ways we talk, because we have this conversation on Outlaw Radio so much, because I know Kamar and I are around the same age, and that music that we listened to became, it was just ours at first. And I don't even think we understood at that time that this thing was about to change the world, right? Because I can remember listening to A Tribe Called Quest, and my own brother would walk in and say, "What is this weird shit? And this ain't rap, man. Turn this shit off, man. This ain't." You didn't think that these dudes would now be like iconic. Like,
Right,
you didn't think people would see Rakim. Rakim can walk in damn near any room on this planet and people go, "Oh shit, this is the greatest to ever do it." Like, they call his brother the God MC, right?
hmm
Nobody even, and I can even remember back when Rakim was first hitting, and there was people say he rapped too slow. I heard Marley
right,
Marl say the first time I heard Rakim rap, I thought he was rapping too slow. I really didn't
right,
want to do it, right? Like, so that music, that little ghetto hood music with the little white dudes, you say the little jungle boogie, is now the largest selling, biggest genre of music on the planet. And so you never would have thought that, Biggie said it, never thought that hip hop would make it this far. So people say, why would you have a whole show about it? And this is why, because there's so many. I'm looking at uh Jesse Parrish in Denver in the chat room right now, naming off artist after artist, and they're all from that era that we talked about, that 1985 to about 1996, 97 clip. I think it all comes to a head with the murder of Biggie and Tupac. I really do.
yes,
I think because after that, the music was kind of, the energy was deflated. And I
right,
remember feeling at the time like, that's it for that. Like, it was kind of like, man, where to go now, because all of a sudden everybody had gotten, like, tried to turn against the gangster rap. You couldn't
hmm
necessarily bring back the conscious rap. So it's like, well, where are we taking this? Well, then it became club music. And then the
hmm
pop angle just kind of, now you get your Ludacris's and your Nellies and your Eminems, and you get all these dudes who got ringtones, and now they got chips in the store. And so the real commercialization of hip hop starts, to me, at that point. And that,
right,
don't get me wrong, it takes it, like you said, in another direction as well, because it made it more commercially viable, right? Like,
right,
so, and I'm not a fan of the music from that era per se, but I do recognize the contribution. Like,
right.
people say, Atlanta runs hip hop. I'll go out on a limb to say most of the music that comes out of Atlanta, I don't like. Rap
I
music,
don't either.
especially right now, I'll be like, that's bullshit. Like that's I'm sorry. I'm
Right.
sorry,
There's
ATL.
nothing. There's nothing iconic about. There's no diversity in the music that's coming out of Atlanta. But what goes on in Atlanta is that they support each other. They artists, and the labels are pouring money into that ignorant shit because they don't know no better. They just want they in it for the money. They're not in it for a career. They're not in it for the love. They're in it for the money. And they're being pimped for that.
Okay.
So there's nothing iconic about their music. There's nothing global about it. And that's why we got shows, and that's why we keep reverting back to the past.
Right,
It's
right, right.
because of when I used to live in Atlanta and I used to talk about my tapes, people would laugh at me because they don't know nothing about no tapes. They didn't know nothing about the artists and the pioneers on the tapes. I wouldn't be able to do and be successful in Atlanta. So I had to leave Atlanta and I came back to New York
Okay.
because I had to make it happen in New York.
But
It wasn't going because it wasn't going to work in Atlanta.
I feel like Atlanta's where the business of hip hop is done at now, as opposed to I don't feel like because and I'm a Dungeon family. Like, come on, like for me, Outkast first 2 albums at least, just ridiculously, I just takes it in a different direction, like you said. But the music at one point was coming out of there. It was iconic, as you would call it. It was
Yeah,
classic.
Outkast,
It was
Goody Mob.
timeless. Yeah. But now I think the business, because if you want to be in a movie or you want to be in a TV show and you're
It's
black,
Atlanta,
you want to go to Atlanta because it's black on black, black business down there. And the
right?
music of, Tyler Perry is down there who just purchased BET and VH1,
Yes.
right? Who'd have thunk that Medea would one day own BET, but shout out to him. But it's I feel like the music, the value of the music went away in the business that became the epicenter. Now, but in terms of in terms of New York, the movement now that we deal with is the ladies movement. This is the time where the ladies now is what it's about. Now, New York, who was the last iconic, successful MC aside from Nicki, right? Aside from, who was the last MC from New York? Because J. Cole is from
North Carolina.
North Carolina, right? Who is you're there? So tell me, who is New York? Who have they put out? Like what happened?
Cardi B. She's running the show now.
Cardi. Okay, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I forgot about her.
Yeah,
And the
Cardi
crazy part
B.
is she's rocking with more Chicago drill dudes, right? Instead of
right.
Like, I don't see New York putting New York on no more.
No, and it's not gonna happen.
Okay.
It's too much arrogance, too much ego, and a lot of hate going on in New York. So that's not gonna happen. Them days is over. And that's why Atlanta is winning. Atlanta is winning because they support each other in Atlanta. They don't support each other like that in New York. There's too much hate going on in New York. And a lot of people don't see the bigger picture in New York like I see the bigger picture. I talk about things and it goes over people's heads in New York because a lot of people in New York don't want to put in the work, but they want the bag, but they don't want to put in the work. They don't see the bigger picture like other people from other cities see. They don't.
Yeah. That sucks too, man, because you know what I mean? Like it started in New York with that blueprint. You know what I mean? How they write, that's how it started. That's where the blueprint started. You know what I mean? And that sucks right there. You know what I mean? Like how the focus, like I don't understand it, but you can see it better because you're there. Well,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
And fortunately for me, because of the type of person I am, because I lived in Raleigh, North Carolina. I lived in Richmond, Virginia. I lived in Virginia Beach. I lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I lived in Kansas City. I lived in Atlanta. You know what I'm saying? So I'm able to see and hear the lingo and the environment, and because I lived it. I lived in these cities, and I could see, okay, something is going to pop in this city that's not going to pop in New York. because New York want to hold on to. They want to hold on to this narrative. They want to keep hip hop in the box. Other people don't want to keep hip hop in the box. They want to keep it. They want to, a lot of like I used to tell people, I don't care where hip hop started. Everybody knows hip hop started in New York. I'm more worried about where hip hop is going, not where it started.
Okay. Now, I with the understanding that everything is generational and everything, that's another thing about hip hop is regional, but it's also very generational. So I'm looking at Parrish, and he's saying T.I., Soulja Boy, them Franchise Boys, Lil Jon, and the East Side Boys. I left them out when I said Atlanta and Iconic Music, but obviously they sold a lot of records, and they had a lot of hit records, and they made a lot of money. For me, I don't consider, now T.I. is different for me, but I don't consider Soulja Boy's music iconic. Even though I understand he changed the whole game with how he showed how to take this YouTube thing and say fuck these record labels. But I just when I think of I don't have songs from him that I can put next to some of these other artists that we talking about.
Yeah, Soulja Boy had one song, one impactful hit. Not an album.
His journey. I would say his journey is iconic. You know what I mean? Because like you said, Kev, he showed us a whole different way to do it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? With the social media type thing.
Exactly.
He is iconic.
Right.
But he's not iconic. Like, you know what I mean? His music ain't iconic.
But he did an iconic move.
Yeah, anybody could have been that person in that, you know what I'm saying?
Anybody could have, but it was him. So
right.
You know,
I'll give you another example.
Right.
Nobody with these, when it comes to these tapes, I'm iconic because I took these tape to another level. I took it to another direction that nobody thought about doing it. In fact, I got laughed at when I started doing. I got the tapes and Geechee Dan Hip Hop Tape Show with my tapes. People laughed at me. They said, there ain't nobody trying to hear that old shit. Ain't nobody trying to hear that old shit. There ain't nobody trying to hear them cobweb tapes, spiderweb tapes. And I proved them wrong.
They play a lot of that on Rock the Bells. There's like just how they do Salute the Sample, which I love. I love Salute the Sample. But they play a lot of times where LL, it's like a vignette where he'll say, people got to understand that hip hop comes from a time when there were no record deals. That dudes wasn't doing it like that. It was all done in the parties. It was done in the parks. It was these live shows, and these tapes made their way from Bronx through Harlem, through Queens. And that's how you got on in hip hop, is your tape that from these parties that you was at. So they play that stuff sometimes. So I didn't know, are those your tapes, or is that stuff that they've kind of cultivated?
We came in the game from what we emulated from the tapes that was heard, that we heard from the Bronx. LL came in the game. Big Daddy Kane came in the game. Fresh Prince, myself, Mikey D. We all came in the game based upon the tapes that we was hearing in the Bronx. From these, the Cold Crush 4 and the Treacherous 3 and the Funky 4 and Soul Sonic Force at these parties, at these parks, at these block parties, at the skating ring jam.
Right. So and I know back in the days, I had an older cousin who had the big ass boom box, and he would have tapes with rap on it. And that's like, I never forget the first time I heard New York, big city of dreams. My cousin had it in his boom. I was really little, like, play that again. What is that? Like that. It was crazy, but it was a tape. Like you said, and it wasn't professionally. It didn't sound good. It was kind of muddled. It was a bootleg.
Right. It wasn't the best quality. Yes.
Right.
And I decided to use these tapes that I had taken for granted and create a show and create my own lane. And I got so big over the last couple of years, because then I started getting people to say, hey, can you be our executive director for the National Museum, the National Hip Hop Museum in DC? Because I saw this was a lane, that this was something that was missing in hip hop. This was something that's missing in the museums. This is missing in the Hall of
So
Fame.
you're working with both of them. You're working with the Hall of Fame and the museum.
The museum, the National Hip Hop Museum in Washington D.C. I'm the former executive director,
Oh, okay. Okay.
and then I went over to the Hip Hop Hall of Fame, and then now um I'm going to be starting my own Hall of Fame as well. I'm and that's probably be a part two of our interview where I'll be able to discuss more in detail about that situation that um I'm going to be a CEO of it. I'm going to be, over this new situation. Because of the tapes, it opened up other opportunities for me.
Okay. And keep us in mind. I hope you whatever endeavors you undertake, keep us in mind and come back and rock with us. We would appreciate that. And I do want to say, because right now in our community, violence is super, super pervasive. And we're dealing in all of our communities. And so I can't even just say in Milwaukee. I know a lot of people who don't like my city who are from here who have moved on like to say, "Oh, Milwaukee is fucked up." But every city, every black community in this country, the black community is fucked off. There's murder, there's violence. So violence has attached itself to hip hop. Like when you hear hip hop, almost aggression and rough, rugged, and raw comes to mind when it's really, in its essence, that's not what it was about. But since it came from a community that was downtrodden and poor, and these kinds of things were going on in the background, and it eventually became a topic. Now, violence in hip hop, like they're like this. Even the deaths of our icons, our top two, in my opinion, Biggie and Tupac, both murdered, right? And then I don't know how many rappers at this point. We can't even, like, there used to be a short list. Now it's like a whole damn page. But is there a way that hip hop could ever be utilized to bring us back together? Like, cause some people say it is so
Yes,
divisive and it ruined us. I've heard people say rap music ruined black kids. It ruined a whole generation. And I'm like,
I believe it can. And let me tell you something. Just from the tapes, the tape game, the lane that I've created for the tapes, I I see other lanes, other opportunities that never been done in hip hop. Let me give you an example. I said earlier that for years I was seeing and hearing the worst of our culture, the worst of hip hop. In order to change something, I felt like I need to be in a position to change it. I need to be, if something is going on that affects the local community, our international community, and our national community, national communities, I feel like I need to be on that level to make a change. So what do I do? So instead of popping bottles in the Bronx or popping bottles for something that somebody does every year that really doesn't have any impact or anything, not nothing going iconic going on with that situation, I choose to get on the phone and say, hey, maybe I can get a television show called Hip Hop Impossible that's based off Mission Impossible. Maybe I can create a hip hop television show where we can create CIA type of agents, a CIA agency in hip hop with hip hop actors that we have now on these shows, and do a Mission Impossible, um, emulate that type of storylines with trying to get guns off the street on a federal level. Maybe we can do this,
yeah, but
drugs
we're
on the
too
federal
busy
level.
praising BMF and the 80s crack epidemic and powerless. Like everything we do now is about drama and drugs and death.
Right.
Like
We
we
need more
celebrate this
content.
shit.
Right. And I respect 50 Cent for doing what he's doing, but we need more individuals like myself to think that if we can do a negative show like that, we can also do a positive show like that. People need to see the best of what hip hop can do. Hip hop, and see, I feel like there's so many other opportunities that hip hop, the roads that hip hop never traveled down certain roads. Here's 5 examples. There's never been someone to stand on top of Mount Everest holding a radio and a tape. There's no one in hip hop that has anything haven't done anything at Mount Everest. There's no one has never done anything with hip hop in space. There's no one in hip hop that's done anything in Antarctica, North Pole, South Pole. So I feel like there's other lanes that Black people just don't want to travel down. So let me be the one to knock on the door and connect with somebody at NASA, because the worst thing somebody can do or say to you is no. So when one person say no, you knock on somebody, you knock on another door.
Right.
And you try to make something happen over here. I can get some people to think outside the box. There's no deal. We don't even have hip hop don't even have its own network.
We don't.
Hip hop don't have a game show. Hip hop don't have a restaurant.
We got Wild and Out. Well, that's not a game show though.
No, we don't have a hip hop game show.
Right.
We don't have a hip hop restaurant. We don't have a hip hop cafe.
Now Cube tried it. Cube tried it with this Hollywood Squares. He did try the hip hop game, and I don't know what happened to it. Now, shout out to the Milwaukee Hip Hop Museum. They said I love the tapes. That's how music deals started. The cassettes on the radio stations. And Milwaukee Hip Hop Museum says, congratulations, Geechee Dan. I respect your lane, Planet of the Tapes. Let's see. Che is saying, how is that hip hop museum in the Bronx? What are the biggest takeaways from it? I'm just running through. Shout out to Milwaukee Hip Hop Museum again. Said, be the change you want to be. Let me see who else. K writes down in H-Town. He says, because those things sell, love and hip hop is the worst thing to ever be produced for our culture, yet it's running as long as The Simpsons show. Blacks will sell out blacks for a comfort check in a heartbeat. So, okay, love and hip hop. Now, once again, because Love and Hip Hop New York, I love DMX's take on it when he said, it ain't no love, it ain't no hip hop. They should just call it niggas on some bullshit. I said,
pretty much.
DMX is a nutty buddy.
But he was right. He's absolutely right.
Right. So, but to get a check though, right? To get a check, like my brother K. Rice said. Now in New York, do y'all frown upon the love and hip hop thing, or do you say this is the only thing that's keeping us kind of relevant? I mean, it's Cardi B and Nicki Minaj, but I mean, what else?
That's the ignorance of. That's what the world sees already. They already look down at us as a culture. Like I said earlier, we need more content to present the best of hip hop, not the worst, not the ignorant shit.
Okay.
Why does everything got to be ignorant? Why can't it be some, let me tell you, hold on.
That era you named, the thing that made it so special is it goes from De La Soul to NWA. The variation in there, the flavor in there, the real culture in there. Like there's a band, even in the middle of that, you talked about PE, BDP, X-Clan, Poor Righteous Teachers, that whole movement, Brand Nubians, that whole knowledge movement is wrapped up in there too. And that's a whole other lane for showing that hip hop can be utilized in that regard.
Let me give you an example. The Honeymooners television show was, they only had one season, 39 original sitcom half-an-hour shows. That's still the #1 syndicated show all over the world, and that was 75 years ago. Look at Good Times. Good Times is on 4 different syndicated networks. Sanford's Son, The Jeffersons. These were all great, iconic shows on network TV that's in syndication. My son still thinks that Good Times was done 2-3 years ago, and that was over 40 years ago.
Right. What's happening?
So I believe that we can do some quality, iconic shows, but people don't. Everybody's not thinking like me. They
Right.
thinking for a paycheck, so they getting what they put out. They want to get put out ignorant. That sells. They get a paycheck. That's cool. I beg to differ. I feel like that we can do, like I said, the best of hip hop. There's quality shows. If you take time to think about it, which I've done, and I got notebooks. I got about 80 ideas that's never been done before. Why can't we do? Why can I make it happen? So I'm focused on making it happen instead of talking, instead of saying no, we can't do it. We can do it. I just haven't found the right person to get in contact with, to collaborate my ideas with. I got in contact with LL. LL Cool J saw the bigger picture with the cassettes, and I'm gracious for that. I'm humble, and that's great. But I want to do other things that we can present hip hop on a platter. You know what I'm saying? I want to get a deal with Waterford Crystal. I want to get a deal with NASA. You know what I'm saying? So I want I want to do shit that haven't been done before. Why we keep still doing the same shit every year? We
Now,
still doing the corny ass, clothing line. We got a clothing. Everybody got a clothing line. Everybody got an alcohol deal. Everybody's doing the same shit every year.
right.
So why we can't do something different? So when people come at me, I'm like, yo, this is the 6th, 7th year you're doing the same thing. You ain't got nowhere doing the same thing every year. So why would I want to hook up with you or collaborate with you? You ain't trying. I'm trying to do a block party on Pluto.
I feel like it's coming. You know what I mean? An opportunity like that, I feel like it's coming. You know what I mean? We see different black people buying networks and stuff like that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
It's coming.
So then the opportunity for us to be able to put our own story.
It's coming.
And
I'm very aggressive.
And the reason why love and hip hop and stuff like that been popping is because, you know what I mean, you got major networks that's like, look, we giving checks if you willing to make an ass out of yourself on TV. You know what I mean? And it's a whole bunch of niggas that want them checks. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, that narrative is gonna change so we can direct what we want to put out for.
I think too, this generation, I always say I'm a Gen Xer, and I think this generation now we're just getting into the driver's seat, because now we're 40, we're in our, there's some 60-year-old hip hop fans, right? Some people who were down with the culture from its inception. And so now as we move into these positions, as those from our generation become the business owners, things start to be written from our perspective. So if you watch the average television dad nowadays, he's kind of like a dude from the 90s who was very hip hop savvy. So that culture, when I watched the Damon Wayans show, and I watched, DL Hewley show, and all of these dudes had a hip hop was definitely in there, right? Like, so that story is starting to be told more and more from a hip hop perspective. So to start doing different things is coming. And I know this because I watched 2 Chainz on Vice, and Most Expensive is funny as hell, but most of what it's about is 2 Chainz taking hip hop into circles and places that it would never be.
Exactly.
Like he's going into, a factory or a business where this dude makes $6,000 and $7,000 cowboy boots for Mexican cartel drug lords, and where they make the crystal with the water. He had Angela Simmons with the water with the stones in it, and he's taking hip hop into those rooms. And those white people aren't resistant to it. They're like, oh, they still look at it like, oh, what? That's so cute. Like, what a cute little puppy. But it's in the room now. So I think what you're saying, I thought about that when you said, damn, so nobody's ever done anything hip hop oriented on Mount Everest. At first you think that don't mean shit, but then it's like, no, it does. It's important to put your stamp wherever you've been, is to leave, hey, hip hop was here. So you just kind of gave me a different perspective on that. Now, what times are you on? Because I'm gonna go now. I'm always listening to like I said, to Rock the Bells, because and I had the option, because when my free subscription was up in my car, I tried to listen to the regular radio stations again, and I said I can't do this. Either it's gonna be my phone or I'm going back to XM. So I've been back with XM now. And so when are you on Rock the Bells? Because I listen to Rock the Bells a lot.
I'm on Tuesday night at midnight, East Coast time, 9 p.m. on the West. And I re-air Saturday morning at 5 o'clock in the morning East, and Sunday morning 8 o'clock in the morning East time, and then again it re-airs Sunday night 11 p.m. on the East,
Okay.
and then the new show starts over again on Tuesday night at midnight.
And so this show is just you playing these clips from these tapes. That's what the show consists
Yeah,
of.
I make it. Of course, I make it entertaining.
Okay.
I play the tapes. I shout out birthdays to everyone in hip hop. I play vinyl. I play some of it. I play live performances from their songs. I put interviews, clips of interviews that they was on, Barbara Walters or Arsenio Hall or VH1 or MTV Raps or whatever, and I put a show together, and we goof, we bounce off, me and Diamond, the artists, we bounce off each other, we goofy and we have fun. You can tell how we put the show together that we have fun doing it.
Okay.
And it grew because there's no show like that on radio where we play tapes. We got the people on the tapes calling in to talk about hip hop and talk about that time that they was on that tape at that party. And then we play, some of their songs. And then being that we planted other tapes, we play live performances, freestyles. Like I said, we make a show out of it.
Is there any way, because there's been such a discussion about a pension and some sort of health care for especially older pioneers, is there any way that this can be monetized so they can receive compensation from their tapes? I know it's all over the place and it'll be hard to cultivate, but is it a way like to even, put together a showcase where they can get bookings if they're able? Some of them may not even be able, they may be in a whole different place. We talking some of them tapes that you said 1976, talking about 45 plus years ago. But I would love to see something be created where they can get paid. If it ain't got to be millions, it could just, because sometimes a little $200 here or there will help and say, oh man, shit. Like, can you package these up, get a deal where you can package these up and stream them or sell them to people? Is there a way, or is that something you're working on? I don't want to tell your business.
I was working with an organization that was involved in catering to health care for the pioneers, dental. But I was like I said, I was working with someone, but that person, we didn't see eye to eye, so I'm no longer working with that individual. However, there is an organization called Hip Hop Alliance. I think that it's started by Curtis Blow, and I believe MC Light is involved, Chuck D, Karis One. I think they're working on some pension situation.
They are, yep.
With the pioneers and the icons and the legends. So, you should salute to them. I just, like I said, I choose to try to go down lanes that haven't been traveled down. Everybody's going to do that. Everybody's trying to do that. Everybody's trying to do, well, there's nobody trying to do here. Ain't nobody trying to do that. So I rather put my focus and energy towards opportunities that never been done before, that has a bigger impact, or that could be iconic and global, because it ain't just here in the States, it's worldwide with me. Like I said, I want to see a hip hop restaurant in Japan, and a hip hop circus in Germany. And my mind is, I want to be on a space shuttle, and we going up on the rocket ship on the space shuttle, playing tapes and with our boombox radio and playing hip hop in space.
All right.
What, that's never been done before. So I rather focus on situations that's never been done before.
Okay. Now I want you to, how do people get in touch with you, your socials, so people can keep up with the show, or what, and we're friends now. So henceforth, whatever you're kind of what you got going, it'll be shared on my page as well as my group, the People's News Network. And so as a friend of the show, as we like to refer to people, what's your socials? How do people get with you?
My social with Instagram, IG is Geechee Dan Official, one word. On Facebook, I'm just plain old Geechee Dan. And on Twitter, which I'm not really on that much, but I do have a ID as Geechee Dan 100 because I try to keep it 100. And TikTok, I think I'm a Geechee Dan as well, and I'm really not too much with other platforms that much. I'm mainly I interact mainly on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
And I hope that I was um informative about what I'm doing and what I'm trying to do. Um Me talking about playing hip hop in space and being somebody in hip hop that's on top of Mount Everest and the North Pole and the South Pole and Antarctica and stepping, doing things outside the box. Does that sound crazy to y'all?
I you know I don't turn down nothing but my collar. So
Hey,
I don't. It could any right now. The sky's the limit. I mean, it can just higher and higher. I don't think it sounds crazy. I think it's something worth giving some thought to. Like, okay, if you there, why not leave your mark? I don't think it sounds crazy. What you think, Kamar?
I was gonna say it don't sound crazy to me. I can understand how it would sound crazy to a lot of people because they don't understand those type of minds. You know what I'm saying? It's only a certain type of people that think bigger than they could think. You dig what I'm saying? That's like that could see themselves soaring higher than anybody ever went. You know what I mean? I ain't talking about flying for real, but you get what I'm saying?
Right,
Like,
right.
I talk big about myself all the time. You know what I mean? I'm the best at everything I do. You know what I mean? And that's how we all should feel. And we all should feel like we want to do something. We want to make some kind of mark. You know what I mean? In this world that's going to be remembered forever. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what we here for. You know what I mean?
Right.
To do something that ain't nobody ever done before. So why not figure, you know what? I'm gonna see if I could DJ on the moon somehow. If I could have some music played on Mars, you know what I mean? Maybe I could hook up with one of these astronauts and have them, you know what I mean?
Right,
Right.
right.
But you know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean? So we gotta think like that, man.
Uh,
And that's only thinking like that is how hip hop evolved.
and that's what I was gonna
You
say.
know
The
what
whole
I'm saying?
concept is many in the first place. So it took somebody to think outside the box. It
Yep.
takes when we mention those pioneers, and we can have a whole other show about this. It takes somebody like Grandmaster Flash to say, and I've watched him talk about this. I play these songs at these parties, but everybody's favorite part is the bridge. And so you get to certain parts of these songs and you say, why didn't they just keep doing that? So I started
Mhm.
to backspan. And he said that way I would keep the best parts of the song on repeat, which leads to what we eventually discover is sampling and this kind of thing. But he's thinking outside the box because who's thinking about taking
Yeah.
two records? And I'm not
Yeah.
listen for
You
New York people who
take
are
the best
tuning
part.
in.
Let me take the best part of the
For New
song.
York people who tuning in, don't come on me and say he wasn't the first one to do it. I get it. I'm just saying I heard his interview about it and his the way he came up with it is to say
Yeah.
I'm gonna approach this from outside the box. And
I'm
so
gonna
that's
take
what it took for this art form to be created. So I
right.
definitely don't think you
I'm gonna take the best part of a song and make a song.
a whole other song.
You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
A whole other
That's
song.
genius, man. That's
Right.
genius. I'm gonna
And
take the part out of a song that everybody like and make a song with it.
and you
Hmm.
consider that this is at a time when they've taken musical programs out of the schools across the nation. So we don't grow up learning how to play instruments per se. You know,
Right.
you don't you could take piano, but it wasn't like, people they had taken those programs away. So what we did was we took the records and said, man, that band sounds great together. But I just wish they'd have played it this way. And then you learn how to manipulate it electronically. So it's a beautiful thing, man. So now Hip Hop Museum, Milwaukee is saying thanks for stepping out the box with the hip hop culture. Also got to keep it original. Dope interview. Got a lot of knowledge tonight. Sounds like. Keep pushing. Keep on pushing, Geechee Dan. I feel you. That's Milwaukee Hip Hop Museum. Sharon Evans says, I visited Toronto back in the 90s and peeped the thirst or need for hip hop. Wasn't until the 2000s that void was filled. Um, and so she said, my point is this young man can do anything. Yes, we can as a people. Now, my brother Geechee Dan, do you have any events coming up this weekend that you want to promote while you're here? Anything you got coming up that's gonna be big?
Tomorrow, I have a mixtape exhibit tomorrow at the Queens Public Library, 89-11 Merck Boulevard, Jamaica, Queens, New York. Is being hosted by Ralph McDaniels from Video
Ah,
Music Box.
Uncle
So
Ralph.
I'll be at the library tomorrow from 5:30 to 7:30, and I'm going to recreate a park jam in Queens from 1977.
Okay. Okay.
So I got that coming up tomorrow. I'm going to be honored by BLM Foundation organization based in Brooklyn, June 22nd. I'm also going to be co-hosting an event for the Nerve DJs in Cleveland, Ohio. Big shout out to DJ Johnny O. At the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, September 22nd. So I'll keep everybody updated with that. And Tony, I'm supposed to be doing an event at her museum in Milwaukee this summer. As soon as I
Okay.
get,
Yeah.
as soon as I get
We gonna for
some
sure
details
see you
about that.
there.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. Make sure when you come, you let us know. So we could definitely show love to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pull up to my smoothie shop.
Pull up and get you a
Get some of
smoothie,
that good wellness.
some
okay,
wellness, some elderberry or some sea moss.
This
Movie
smoothie.
Star Trek's Captain Kirk and the commander of the USS Enterprise, Starship Enterprise to explore okay, to explore strange new worlds and seek out new life and civilizations to boldly go where no man has gone before. He said, yeah, we had music when we was in school. That's Paris. Kamar, what you got coming up this weekend, bro?
Oh man, this weekend I'll be doing an event with the Black Chamber of Commerce over at Destiny School, High School, up there on 76th Street. Saturday, it's all day Saturday. At one section, they're gonna have a black man who cook. You know what I mean? I think that's going from 12 to 2. You know what I mean? Where they're gonna be doing that in there. But it's a lot of different stuff going on. But then also Monday, I'll be at Juneteenth. I'm doing Juneteenth, and then I'll be at the Juneteenth at the Garden after that Juneteenth. So, yeah,
Okay.
we're gonna be busy. So I'm gonna be going live from the Garden.
Okay. Are you talking about next Monday show?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. The Milwaukee Hip Hop Museum wants you. It said bring the smoke to the museum. Um, Let me
definitely.
see. Okay. Now, see, we have this thing Saturday. We're gonna be on the Call to Action podcast. Kamar
That
and
too.
myself. Shout out to Crystal Ship. Shout out to
Yeah.
Ticey Gossi, and shout out to Samantha Collier. So yeah, they getting me out the house, man. They getting me out the house. I'm gonna have to. They making me take the outlaw thing on the road a little bit, but
Yeah, we're gonna show up and show out.
yeah, it'll be a good conversation. Those sisters do a great job. I seen that they've spoken to some brothers that stand for something in the community, and they're talking to brothers who are right now movers and shakers, and not in that regard like we're big time, big timers, but saying brothers who are out here entrenched in the community trying to do positive things. And so I'm
Right.
appreciative that they're going to bring us on with that. I did get my garden in the ground. Like I told y'all, I was going to get a garden in the ground. I didn't do a show Monday, but I had, and I want to tell a story, but I want to tell it on the show Monday. I had an up close and personal scare with this reckless driving stuff with my son. And it was a crazy Sunday. And I was thinking, like, man, it's just we'll talk about that Monday because we have an epidemic here with the stolies and the reckless driving, and youngsters are killing themselves with these cars and killing other people. Continuous deaths overnight from car accidents, trying to run from the police. So I had an experience with that. So I felt like Monday I need to take it back a notch and do some family stuff. And we worked on our garden. We got our garden, and I'm gonna keep y'all up to date on the progress. But it's looking real. right now your boy gonna have a healthy harvest. But yeah, so and like I said, I'll be on lookout for us to be on the call to action. And like I said, I wanted to do a show about hip hop because I personally need something to lighten the mood. Rest in peace to Yayo the Don. Rest in peace to T Rock. Rest in peace to Twin. Rest in peace to Moo Moo. And if you lost somebody out there, prayers and condolences to your family. It's not a joke. It's not a game. It's lives at stake, and people are losing their lives. And unfortunately, we don't have leadership that is strong enough to deal with what's going on in our city. And that's normally what we talk about on this show. So shout out to the people who tuned in to hear us get socio-political. But we have been known over the years to take these breaks and take deep breaths with individuals like my brother. And we always love to have a great show, a great conversation about hip hop. So I want to say, my brother, you're welcome to come back. You are a friend of the show. If you got something popping, and definitely if you coming to rock with Antonia, who's a friend of the show, an outlaw herself, holler at us so we can get you in, man, and get you on. I want y'all people
Okay.
to understand the whole idea about this is we have a whole bunch of things that should be common threads that bring us together, but we make them divisive. There's some toxicity in the water, right? In our systems. I always say this is a systematic thing that has become systemic for us. We're sick. You say, we sick, boss? Yes, we is. Yes, we is. We got issues in our community. I'm not saying can be fixed, but what it's gonna take is for us to try to get things that we can celebrate and acknowledge as opposed to things that we will argue about and fight about. And hip hop music should not be one of those things that we are fighting, shooting, and looting about. As a matter of fact, whenever there's a hip hop show or there's a hip hop club, it's always closed down in Milwaukee in particular very, very quickly because something violent usually happened. I feel like whenever we can have an openly outright celebration of our culture, we need to cherish it and say, listen, man, no bullshit down here tonight, but we're just not there yet. So we got to keep pushing. We got to keep the spirit of creativity alive. We have to really dwell on the fact that we are brilliant people. And we, once again, have created the most beautiful cultural influences that you could ever. America wouldn't be shit without black people and our influence, right? And that's not even to talk about the things that we've invented, but just on a cultural level, our art, our literature, our clothing, our style. Period. This country is a bland ass potato chip without black people, and we need to start celebrating that instead of fighting and feuding amongst each other. But I ain't said nothing y'all ain't never heard before, man. Thank y'all for tuning in to the show. All you really have to do if you want to rock with the Outlaws is think about it. You have to make sure that your criticism of the community is not outweighed by your contribution, or I should say, your contribution to the community shouldn't be outweighed by your criticism of it. Because if that's the case, then we know for sure that you're a coon. And I will see y'all Monday night, man. Peace and love.
Peace.
Thank you for having me on, y'all.
Thank
Peace.
you for coming, my brother. Thank you for coming.
It's an
Definitely.
honor.